Web components. Web components are really freaking awesome. I love them because it encapsulates HTML and CSS and its own functionality into its own little bubble, its own little world where it can't be affected by anything else. It has its own shadow DOM. And so if you have CSS in your main project and you want to use a component for some sort of user interface element like a tooltip, which is what we're going to be creating, then you can do so without worrying about it having, basically being interfered with by your project or screwing it up. So let me just show you. This is what we're going to create from scratch. Just a little kind of like a tooltip thing. As you can see, we have two of them, but they're customized so we can pass options to them. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. I'm going to show you the design process just from a UI, UX perspective. But yeah, it's very cool, and I'm going to walk you through from the very beginning. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by Linode. Now, as a front-end developer or a designer, you know that you need a personal portfolio. And if you use a website builder like Wix or Squarespace, they lack total customization and they lock you into using their platform. But to be a pro, you need to use the tools that the pros actually use. So level up, start building your own projects and your own portfolio on an enterprise level content management system like WordPress or Drupal. Now, real web development sometimes requires knowledge of spinning up servers, managing domain names, and setting up an occasional staging environment. And there's no better or simpler way to learn the ins and outs of hosting your website than with Linode Cloud Hosting. Linode Cloud Hosting makes it as easy as possible for you to deploy a WordPress or Drupal website in seconds with the free Linode one-click app marketplace. So click on the very top link here in the YouTube description to get your free Linode account along with $20 of free hosting and all the tools that you need to build enterprise class websites. All right, so we're first going to step here in Adobe XD because I'm a UI UX guy. I just can't help myself. I know this is a web components front-end development tutorial, but I like to give everybody the full spectrum of a given project. So in this case, I want to make sure the tooltip looks good, the icons are good, so I'm going to design them from scratch. Now, here's the thing. If you don't want to follow along with the design part, then just use the timestamp, the relatively new timestamp feature at the bottom of this YouTube video player right here, and then just go straight to the front-end development part where we step into the actual code. But if you're interested in design and the thought process, then watch now. So again, so it's going to be like a in content or in text sort of tooltip. All right. So the first thing we're going to use is just a type. Say this is my. I know it's really small, but one second. This is my snazzy text with an awesome tooltip. Okay. Doesn't matter what the type is really. We're using Linode here for the font. That's what I'll use in the project as well. And I'm leaving some space here to emulate the space where a tooltip will go. All right, so we're going to use a circular tooltip. You don't have to, not a big deal. You can also even not even have an icon for a tooltip, but have like a dotted underline under a certain thing, like a certain word or whatever. No big deal. I'm just choosing to do this. And we're just going to choose like a blue, like that. All right. So now we're going to create an exclamation point. I'm not going to use the type tool. I'm going to use just the drawing tools to create that, which will be freaking dead simple. So I'm creating the top portion. That's pretty thick. So I'm going to hold Alt, drag that in just slightly, and then we'll pull this one up. I'm going to go back to Select Tool, double click it. So now we have access to each of the anchor points. And you know what? I'm going to increase this. Yeah, we're going to increase that. And what we'll do is just pull, we'll increase this one as well. Sorry, I'm making changes all over the place. Let's back up. Alt. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to double click, bring this in. All right, that'll work. And then we need the actual dot. That's a little bit too large. No big deal though. Let's just get things situated here. All right. I think I like that. You get both of them, and then now we know we're centered vertically. I think I'm going to move this up just a bit. It's a little bit tall. Now we're going to take both of them, move them into place. All right. I like that. So then what we'll do is we'll take that as well, all three of those elements, Alt and then Shift pull up, and we're going to create the X with our shapes as well. So looking at this, I'm going to start here first just so we can get like a rough width approximation. Ooh, I'm not able to line this up exactly as I want. It's right there. Nope, that's not it. Here, let's do this instead. We'll start at the center here, just like I did before. All right. There we go. Hold Shift. Let's bring this in. There we go. Hold Shift, and then we'll go ahead, Control D to duplicate. Hold Shift, rotate with your mouse. All right, that looks pretty good. I might want to scale this down just a tad bit. All right, those are our two icons. I like those. All right, sorry for the screw ups. I meant that to go a little bit more smooth than that. All right, so now we're going to take both of these. We're going to group them up. We're going to take these three elements and group them up as well. We're going to call this one, we want to name the groups because once we export these as SVGs, this is the name based on the group name that they will be saved as the file. So this is going to be alert, and then this one will be exit. All right, so now we're going to take this and we're going to put it on top, but then drag it underneath in the layer stack just so we can't see it. And then now what we need to do is draw out the actual tooltip container when somebody clicks on, you can make it, or if they hover over, whatever, this little icon. So now what we'll do is we're going to leave that white, and then we're going to have a shadow. We'll offset the X axis a little bit, and then also bring that. I don't like those huge rounded corners. All right, so that's looking pretty good there. And we'll make the background and the text customizable for the web component itself. Let's bring this down a lot to, like, let's say 14. And then we'll go over here to my plugins. We'll go to lorem ipsum, quick lorem ipsum. Yeah, something like that, just to simulate the text inside of it. I might want to make this like 13. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to Alt and drag holding Shift to replicate that artboard. And this artboard over here, we want to take this top one and get rid of the opacity. And then this one, we want to take this, both of these elements, and just drag them all the way down, and then also take down the opacity. All right, so now we're ready to prototype. We'll click on the actual icon. We'll bring it over with auto animate as the action type. 0.5 seconds will be good. Wait, 0.5 S, there we go. And then we'll bring this one back, and there we go. We are done. So let's hit play and see what it looks like. So we click it. It's gonna it won't look like that exactly once we're in the actual project, but it'll basically behave like this. All right, awesome. So let's go ahead and get started with the coding portion. All right, not just yet with the coding portion. I forgot we need to export both of these. So make sure your layers are out over here in XD. We're gonna take alert and exit. We're gonna go to export and selected, and then we're going to choose SVG, and I'm just exporting to my desktop. We're not going to actually use these as files. We're going to grab the contents of the SVG, the data from the file, and then just use that instead of referencing it through an image tag or whatever. So I'm just going to export that to the desktop, and now we're going to go back here to the actual project. So all I have is an empty folder, almost empty. There's an index.html with some boilerplate. If you don't know about this, you're using Visual Studio Code like I am, just hit exclamation point enter and you get this exact same thing. Except I do have a link rel going to my CSS, main CSS, which doesn't yet exist. So let's do that now. CSS, main.css, and we're ready to rock in that regard. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And then let's go ahead and create the actual web component file, which is just a JS file, JavaScript file. And we're going to call ours. Let me look at my reference code really quickly. Very unprofessional, Gary. You should have this stuff ready. All right, and we're going to call it popup notify.js. I don't know why I called it popup notify. Why not just call it tooltip or something? Whatever. All right, so we're going to call it popup notify. We got camel case here, JS. All right, now we're going to reference that, and this is the way you get your web component into your project. At least if it's a vanilla JavaScript project, you're not using any type of framework. Script source equals popup notify.js. That's it. All right. So popup notify.js. Now, in order to make this thing an actual web component, there's just a few things that we need to first create. So the first thing, the heart of your web component is going to be a class that extends an HTML element, which basically means we are creating our own HTML element. So what we're going to do is put in class. What do you want to name it? Well, popup notify. So we'll do the correct non-camel case. This is going to be capitalized. Popup. If I can spell popup notify extends HTML element. All right. So inside of here, inside of every web component, what you're going to see is a constructor. All right. Inside of the constructor, you have 3 lines that are essentially a part of every web component to make it work. And these are the heart of it. So first we have super. Then we have this dot attach shadow. And we're going to set the mode to open. It could be closed depending on your needs, but making it open just allows us to access the shadow DOM via the shadow root. All right, which is really what we're going to be doing in the next line, which is going to be this dot shadow root, and we're going to say append child, and we're going to say template dot content dot clone node true. What this is basically saying with these 2 lines is, and especially this line right here, is we're going to create a template up above here, and it's going to attach it to this new shadow root, all right, which is the shadow DOM essentially. And it's going to be, in this shadow DOM is encapsulated separate from the main document object model that's outside of the actual web component itself. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Really, there's nothing else you really need to do within the constructor here, and you just approach this like you would any other JavaScript project, really. I forgot a couple parts. There's still 2 more things that are really web component specific. First, we have to create that template, right? So this template right here doesn't even exist. So the way we do that is we create a constant of template, and we say equals document.create element, and we're going to call this template. Then template.inner HTML equals, we have our backticks, and this is where your styles, your CSS, and also your HTML templating goes as well, your HTML elements. You can actually use the link rel, all that, and you can link to a separate CSS file if you want, but we're going to keep ours in here because there's not a ton of CSS essentially. So at the top, we can just do inline CSS like that and start defining the CSS there, and then beneath you just start with whatever HTML elements are necessary to pull off your given web component. All right, so for us, we're going to first create a div class of tooltip container. Now inside of here, we're just going to say test, all right? And what this is going to allow us to do is to test and make sure this web component is even working. We have one final step that is specific to web componentry, if that's even a word. I just made it up. It's not. We're going to do window.customelements.define, and then this is going to be the custom tag that we use in the regular project. So pop-up notify, I guess we'll call. And then we pass in the second argument, pop-up notify class that we created up above. All right. So now we save this, and inside of here in our HTML, let's just give ourselves a class of container. And we're going to give ourselves an H1, my awesome tooltip. And then inside of here, we're going to have lorem of like 10, maybe 15. And then inside of here, we're going to reference and use our new custom HTML element, or our web component rather. So we're going to call it pop-up notify, because that's what we called it before. And then we're just going to save. All right. Then we're going to right click, open with live server. If you don't have the live server plugin, come over here to plugins, type in live server, and then just install it. All right. So now open with live server. Where are you? And you're going to see it right there. Test. That is our web component. If you hit Control Shift and I, and we look at our elements here, and we expand this out, you're going to see within the paragraph, we have this pop-up notify thing here. That's our web component, our custom HTML element. We also see this shadow root here as well, which this is what's showing us where everything in that template is defined. All right, awesome. Now it's really just a matter of regular vanilla JavaScript for getting this thing to work as we intend to get it to work, and CSS, of course. So let's go back to our pop-up notify, and let's start writing out the rest of the HTML that's necessary to getting this thing working. So all we're going to have inside of our tooltip container is, first, we're going to drag in our alert and our exit. Now again, I'm not putting it as a file here in the file folder, so I'm just opening it just so I can gain access to the SVG. So the alert, let's go ahead and get rid of some of this unnecessary stuff here. We're also, yeah, that's fine. We'll keep all this stuff. We could probably simplify it a lot more, getting rid of like the groups and stuff, but I'm not too concerned just for the purpose of the tutorial. So we're gonna paste all that right there. So let's go ahead and fix that spacing. Let's fix this too. All right, and also we're also gonna go ahead and, yeah, we're gonna leave that just as is. And then what we're gonna do, same thing with our exit. So get rid of this, copy that, close this. By the way, if we save this now before we paste that second one in, we'll see it right here. Now, of course, we need CSS to make it so it's not breaking that line over there. Now, for now, right here, I'm going to paste that one in. And that one goes right there. So now we're going to have, actually, we can get rid of the width and height. We can control that with the CSS. We're going to have a class here. I was screaming class there for a second with my caps lock. We're going to also do the same thing here. This is going to be class of cancel. So we have class alert and then cancel. That way we can reference these as we need to. So the alert or the cancel one right here, we know by default that we need display none on that dude. So we're gonna do cancel display none. So now when we save it, it's still just going to show us, because we got rid of those two width and height attributes, a very large alert and not the cancel. So now let's go ahead and start actually getting things working here. First, let's fix that huge problem with the SVG. So width, 1M unit, cursor, pointer. All right, so right there, now we have this working a little bit. So let's also get our tooltip container working here. So the tooltip container, remember, if we scroll down right here, this is tooltip container. It's just kind of encapsulated everything. So what we'll do is we need to set tooltip container to a position of display inline block. Also a position of relative, and then we're going to do a z-index here of 2. Now that gets us back here so that it's not breaking this line here. So now it's display inline, which really is what's going to help it work better. Before I continue on with this stuff, I want to do a little bit in main CSS outside of the web component just to get stuff a little bit more situated. So I have a body, a font family in Linode, and also the container, which is inside of our index.html right there. So that's going to tidy things up a little bit, make it just look better. Let's reset this here. There we go. All right, so we click it, obviously nothing happens. So now what we want to do is we're going to take our notify container. So our notify container doesn't yet exist in our HTML. So our notify container is just going to go outside of the SVG, and we're going to say div class equals notify container. And right here, I'm just going to put my tooltip text or whatever like that, just so we can see it. So we're going to see now my tooltip text has been put in right there. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is there's a lot of properties that are going to be a part of this tooltip container. So tooltip container. And how about I do this real quickly here? I'm going to move things over just so you can see some of the progress as we're working, so I don't have to keep on manually switching. All right. Okay, so tooltip container, like I said, quite a few changes. Position is going to be absolute. All right, our bottom is going to be 125% from its original position. We're actually going to do z index here. I did think I just put like something 9, just to make sure it goes on top of everything. Width is going to be 300 pixels. I know it disappeared, but we'll get it back. Don't worry. The background is going to be white. And also, we're going to have a box shadow of 5 pixels, 10 pixel blur, RGBA 000.2. No, I think we're just doing 10% basically on that part. And let me make sure we can get this sucker back, because really I thought it should be there. I guarantee it probably has something to do with this bottom 125% issue right there. So the actual tooltip container, I want to make sure I put this in the correct area. Div class notify container. Oh, that's why. I'm an idiot. Yeah, notify container. Oh boy. Okay, so bottom 125%. So now it should be on the top, see? Right there. Let's make that a little bit larger. All right. So also outside of our box shadow, we're also going to have a font size. Put your fingers in the right position, Gary. Font size is going to be 0.8 em units. We're also going to take our border radius of 0.5 em units, padding 1 em units, because we want white space in there. We don't want it to look ugly. Now it's looking better, as you can see. Transform is going to be scale 0, all right? Because initially we don't want to see this thing, right? So now we've got all the basic styling. This is what we want it to look like over here when somebody clicks on it, right? So now we're going to transform the scale to 0. We're not going to see it anymore. And we're going to do a transform origin, because if we don't do the transform origin and we go to scale this back up once the user clicks it, it comes in from a weird location. So transform origin is going to be from the bottom left. So it's going to scale out from the bottom to the left. Makes sense because we have this right here. You could change this, you can change these directions and this property and value along with the bottom value, so you can make it show up beneath it, to the left of it, to the right of it, whatever you want to do. All right, and then also one more, we're going to transition it, which is just a simple from and to animation. So we're going to do transform 0.5 seconds, and then I'm going to use a specific cubic Bezier for the animation type. So it's going to be, I'm actually going to just paste it off screen here, from off screen. Cubic Bezier, I forget which one this is called. Let me show you something real quickly, just in case you're confused as to where I got that from. I didn't sit there and type that out by hand. CSS transition, cubic, no, easings, there. There's a lot of these cool easing tools and stuff. I didn't use this one for it. Is this it? This might have been it, but basically this will give you, like, there's a cubic Bezier. There's so many of these out here, these tools. So just use one of them and it'll usually show you like the flow and like what these look like when you're playing them. So if you hover over this one, for instance, it shows you this one kind of winds down and then shoots up. So if you want that, here's the code right there. Okay, continuing on, let's save that. Of course, it's not going to work yet because we need to actually make this do something and change our transform scale property when somebody clicks this. So how do we do that? All right, so let's expand this back out. So in order for that to work, we're going to use a part of a lifecycle hook for web components called connected callback. All right, so in connected callback, outside of our constructor, we do connected callback. Wait, is that the name of it properly? Yes, it is. This basically is a lifecycle hook for when your component is loaded. So if you want things to change instantly or to be ready instantly when it's loaded into the page, then you put it here. All right. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do this.shadow root, and then all the other vanilla JavaScript that you know in order to interact with the DOM starts making sense here after this point. So we want to get the alert button. So we do query selector, alert. And again, alert is coming from class alert. All right. So this is the one with the exclamation point. Now that we have that, we can do an add event listener. We're going to listen for a click. And again, you can make that, a hover or whatever you want. Arrow function. And inside of here, we just say this.tooltip. This is going to be a custom function that we create. Oh, why does it do that? I hate when it does that. All right, this.tooltip, we're just going to pass in a Boolean value called true. So this function here, let's create that tooltip function. Inside of it, it's going to take one argument, and that's going to be called expand state. All right, so expand state, of course, will be either true or false. And then we're going to create a couple constants up here. So we're going to create a constant of tooltip. This.shadowroot.query selector is going to be our notify container. Now the notifier container is like the actual verbiage. It's what is it? This thing right here. And we're going to replicate that Shift-Alt down arrow key just a couple times. Alert and cancel as well. So this is going to be, I believe this is class alert and then cancel. Yep. All right. Okay. So once we have those, we're just going to say if expand state is true, then we're going to say tooltip.style.transform. Oh my God. I hate that. What is wrong with you? There we go. Transform equals scale 1. All right, so we're going from scale 0 to scale 1. So tooltip, remember, notify container. That's going to change this element, transform scale to 1 when somebody clicks that alert button, right? So let us go ahead and just give that a shot and see if it works at all. Look at that. It worked. Now, it didn't change this icon because we want it to change to an X. We click it again, it doesn't go away, nothing happens, so we're not done yet. What we'll also do is inside of there, we're going to say, oops, I'm in the wrong area. We're going to say alert.style.display equals none. So we're going to hide the alert button. We're going to do cancel style display, and we'll just do block. And if you wanted to animate these things, you could as well. Expand state is going to be false. All right, so now what we'll do is we'll test this out. Now it changes to an X, the X icon, the cancel icon basically. So now we'll just do else, and we're just going to copy in a few more things here. All right, so this is going to be scale 0. Alert is going to, well, let's just flip these around. This will be alert and this will be cancel. There we go. So now hit X. Oh, and it doesn't go away. Oh, I know why. It's because I forgot to create a click event on cancel. All right, so we change that to false. So now we go back, click on it again, and it goes right back. Very exciting stuff. So what's also cool, well, I'll demonstrate that part afterwards. So now that's how you create a very simple web component, but obviously you want somebody to be able to change this stuff right here, my tooltip text. So that's where you use what's called a slot, all right? And you can use multiple slots. We're only gonna need one. So the first one that we're gonna use here is gonna be, it's basically an element called slot, and then we use an attribute called name, and then we're gonna call this here message. Message will come from, so we come over here, and the way we designate a slot is, let's go ahead and just push this out just so we can focus on this one area over here. Inside of it, we can use an HTML element and give it an attribute of slot, all right? So for me, we're gonna use a span element, and we're gonna say slot attribute equals message, and now we can put in whatever we want, like lorem 10. That's going to be our tooltip message. That way we can make it dynamic for the web component when it's used outside as it's intended to use, as it's intended to be used rather. So click on this, and then there we go. That's exactly what we wanted. And so of course you can have multiple elements and multiple slots however you wish, but that's basically the flow for creating it. Slot name equals message, slot equals message here on any given HTML element. Now what about passing attributes from outside the web component and into it? All right, for instance, you might want to do that so that you can allow them to control various settings, right? So what we'll do, let's say we want people to be able to change the background color and the font color, right, of this little tooltip pop-up. So what we can do is, I'm going to first, let's just work this way. And you create the attribute like any other HTML element. You do it inside of the opening tag, and we'll name this one tip background. And I'll just say FFCC00, that's like a yellowish color. And then also tip color for the font color equals, we'll just make the font white and burn people's eyeballs essentially. So then we need to tie into those here in the logic of our web component. So basically what we'll do is in connected callback, we're going to say, if, first we want to see if there is an actual attribute that's being defined. Otherwise, it's going to fall back on whatever style, the regular CSS background for the background of it, and also the font size, or the font color rather. So we're going to say if this.get attribute tip background, then what we'll set is this.shadowRoot.query selector notify container. Got to make sure you put the class period there. And then we say style.background equals, and I'm just going to copy and paste this. There we go. So now the tip background should be not white, but yellowish orange. Very, very cool. And we could do this one more time for the actual color. So we'll say tip color. This is going to be font color, so the color for font is color. I mean, the property for color is color. Jesus Christ, what am I talking about? Tip color. There we go. So now that's really bad because it's white and that's not enough contrast, but you get the point. So now you can create any number of these configuration options that'll allow people to control any CSS property that you want. So not just CSS properties, but also perhaps functionality as well that you can control through JavaScript. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to show you that you can reuse these things anywhere. So let's put this one right here, except maybe we'll leave tip background off. We'll make the text color gray, perhaps. And I'm going to put in some custom, yo, what's up, persons. Okay. Let's save that. Let's go back here. Yo, what's up, persons? Notice it's gray. It's completely unique. This one stays there. It works as well. Very, 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 very cool stuff. All right, guys, hopefully you learned something and you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to subscribe. If you've created your own web components that people can use, go ahead and give it a mention down below. I'll give you a heart icon, and I'll also maybe even put you in the pinned comment. Let me know. I'll see you guys soon, and goodbye.